Namaskar, friends. We are today again for our 29th issue of Kritya Talk, which we have started after our poetry festival. Because after poetry festival, we thought that there should be communication also. There is a need of communication. Only reading poetry or talking about poetry is not sufficient. We have to talk many things which are the part of poetry, which are supposed to part of poetry. And today I am coming here with a very interesting subject, that is poetry and humanity. It looks very simple that what is poetry and what is, yes, poetry is for humanity only. We can say that, but it is also there that what is humanity and how it is close to poetry and why it is needed for poetry. Because these days, what we find that there is too much poetry, but it is very far from the society. So today I am lucky to get Fahredin Shehu, who born in Rahovec, southeast of Kosova, and he studied Oriental studies, and he has worked for the world spiritual heritage and sacral aesthetics. Aesthetics is very important topic, and sacral aesthetics is again very important. His work has been translated in many languages. I think that all international languages, English, French, German, Italian, Arabic, Hebrew, Romanian, Mongolian, Chinese, Maltese, and even in Bengali also, Bulgarian, and many. He has written 20 books, poems, essays, novels, and written for the uh, many reviews also. He is a award winner poet from Nazi Naman, and he was nominated for Pulitzer Prize, and he is director of International Poetry Festival Poetry and Wine in Kosova. Welcome, Fahredin Shehu. While talking to you, you told me that you belong to uh, the uh, the generation of Sufism, and we all know that Sufism is the very strong base of poetry, international poetry, and not only poetry, even that uh, the what we say that our spirituality, it is very close to Indian hearts. So I am sure that you can give us some insight, or some you can give us some points about the poetry and humanity. So first, I want to listen to you. What you want to talk about your topic, please.
First of all, thank you very much indeed for inviting me to discuss because, as you have just mentioned, it's not enough to say or read poems. It's sometimes very important to discuss upon it. Out of respect, I will greet you with your very precious greeting, which became international, is Namaste. I really I am in love with your culture and your tradition because as a person who has a spiritual lineage of Sufism in the Balkans, I respect every tradition and in particular what is in the realm of sacral aesthetics, in this case poetry in particular, because I do work a lot about and in and on poetry for last 30 years. Therefore, upon our discussion, what are we going to discuss? Many ideas came to my mind. So I thought it's very important to discuss upon poetry because you have just said that there is a lot of poetry, but what remains poetry today, it's hardly difficult to survive because poetry somehow became extremely personal and intimate, and people rarely find this moment in this dynamic and materialistic world to pay attention to themselves, to meditate, to ponder upon the poetry as something that gives much hope, that gives beauty, that gives art, that gives a life to mankind. Uh, Discussing about poetry and humanity, I made 4 bullet points that I would very much love to, if we will have enough time, of course, to discuss about them because I am facing every day these challenges, you as well, and many other poets, and in particular poetry organizers such as yourself and myself, because uh, I happen to confuse myself because I receive so many poetries all around the world, and people are just hoping and imposing themselves to invite them to my festival. But the main criteria is to have poetry, and good poetry brings good poets. So how the poetry is communicating to others is completely another topic. First of all, we have to be, I think, selective to choose what is real poetry and what is not. There are two paradigms. For instance, I happen to uh, engross, make a division between uh, poetry of beat generation, which is very descriptive, very on time, and poetry, so to say, using the matrix of Hafiz, when you develop the stylistic figures which are your own, and every reader shall find something interesting that resonates to them in this regard. So my first bullet point for this discussion was: is poetry struggling to survive, or it is going to be superseded by other forms of worldly expressions? Look, many people thought that after the invention of email, the post offices will be closed. Many people said the novel is the top or the high rank of literary expression, and you can say a lot with more a lot with novel than with the poetry. But in my interviews, which I gave to for instance, in Malta, in Croatia, in London, wherever I go, I used to say that poetry, unfortunately, is a word. You have to say with words. There are different forms of sound poetry. I don't know, rebus kind of poetry, but it is a word that sends you a vibration, and you correspond to that vibration if you are on the same level of artistic development or spiritual development. It's the same way because as a Sufi, I happen to know that my Sufism and my ancestors taught me to love people and to find God through love. I happen to realize during my studies that in India you have three schools of thought, three main schools of thought, and that is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. And I think I belong to a Bhakta, who write about love, who express love, who share love, and who radiates love. Therefore, my poetry is, I think, completely different from the poets who write in the Balkans nowadays and in Europe in particular, because my predecessors in poetry, like Milton, like Henry David Thoreau, like Halil Gibran, uh, we don't have such things now in Europe. I'm I think I'm a sole wolf here, who is still trying to survive and to give potence to the word, to impregnate the word with a lot of emotion and knowledge as well, because you cannot do a good poem if you don't have a real balance, which was discussed by by Buddha with Majjhim Nikaya concept, by Aristotle with Terminus Medius, by Muhammad with Wasatul Tariq, or by Constantin Brâncuș in sculpture, the Romanian famous sculptor who said, without a balance, you cannot create a beautiful work of art. Therefore, I think if one poet finds a balance between the logic and emotion, uh, so to say, to think electromagnetically with our heart, we can create an exquisite, beautiful poetry. And therefore, I said, uh, poetry is struggling to survive because we as a poets, we have to lead, to lead, to prepare the humanity for an upcoming age. Because I don't think in an upcoming next 100 years that any algorithm of artificial intelligence will write better than Rati Saxena or myself, for instance.
Oh, thank you. You have given a very good and very big introduction. So, one thing is this, that yes, you're following your spiritual poetry path, which is not very common now these days in the whole of the world, and especially in Europe also you are going that, because you, as you in starting you said that you are a bit Sufism, and you call about the Bhakti Yoga. You know that yes, we will talk about the Bhakti Yoga. Yes, we have a Bhakti Yoga poetry a lot, but the Bhakti Yoga poetry comes when there mostly when there is so much difficulties in the world. For example, now these days we have this COVID problem, pandemic, and that is how when and most of the history of Bhakti Yoga in India is same, because when there was some problem, social, economic, or political problem, that became very strong. Let us talk afterward. But I want to talk about the the topic you have given. That because you are saying that poetry is struggling to survive, no, and other forms for like paintings, like music, like dance, they are becoming more worldly expression of art, and poetry is going to background, whether the we know that poetry is the base of all art forms, because if a painting is so beautiful, we say that this painting is like a this look like a pure poetry. Even if you see a dress is very beautiful, oh, this dress is so beautiful, like a poetry. So we compare this, but we know that we are not in the time when we are, poetry is becoming the voice of common man. Yes, in Bhakti Kal, it became the voice of common man, but that was a different time. So, what you say that is poetry struggling to survive, or it is suppressed by other forms. So, what do you say about these things with this idea?
Um, Listen, uh, when you see a beautiful music composition or a beautiful movie or a beautiful painting, they said it is so poetic. You know, uh, whether or not people want to admit, they still in their subconscious they consider that if you say poetic, it means top of art. It is, I'm feeding my ego because I am a poet, but at the same time I paint as well. And therefore, either it is in fashion, as you mentioned, the world today. I'm following not only the poetry and literature. I follow the fashion. I follow the architecture. You cannot cohabit in this planet without knowing, for instance, about the architecture of Rem Koolhaas or Zaha Hadid, or you cannot overpass Boris Bijan Saberi, or in fashion, or in perfume producing, like Francis Kurkdjian is doing in Paris, or you cannot avoid Anish Kapoor art or Ai Weiwei art and say that I live in this age. Therefore, we as poets, I think, we have not to compete with our counterparts, like I mentioned these great names. I mentioned these great names because they are sparkling in their fields. I think we as artists, as poets, we have to excel, and we have to offer to humanity a new way, and creating a new patterns, creating a new matrix for the future artists. They can follow, or they can establish a new way of worldly expression. Shall we call it poetry or not? It's another different topic, but
Um,
I think we have to work harder uh, to collaborate more, because even a great artist masters in painting, for instance, they have their assistants. We as poets, we have to have our assistants. And our assistant might be someone who organized the poetry festival, someone like you who organized this talk, so someone who disseminate our work, someone who trigger your attention that certain poet is excelling in expressing, in establishing a new pattern of thinking, of creating, of beautiful art in this age. Because we have to, as I said, we must, otherwise we will not survive. We must correspond to the needs of nowadays mankind. We cannot create. Look what in the movie, for instance. I was in. Can I continue, or I am bothering you? I was in Sassari in Italy, and we had a discussion with the students. There were more than 1,000 students in the technical university, and they were asking me, Professor, you are talking about your poetry, because I was launching Miles from the Four Scrolls of Illyrian Sage, my book, uh, which is epic. To write an epic in 21st century is really strange. Rarely poet today writes epic poetry. And I wrote an epic divided in four cycles. It's four scrolls of creation, from primordial times, from antiquity till nowadays. And they were asking me, Professor, what do you want to say to us? What is this? I mean, you speak about spirituality, you speak about beautiful things. I said, uh, and do you follow any trend? I said, No, I don't follow any trend. I try to create one.
can
And
I ask you
creating,
one thing? Yeah.
yes, of course.
I give very recent example. We are passing through pandemic. There are many countries in this pandemic time where 60% to 80% the people were suffering in other way. For example, WHO leader today itself, I listened to him. He said that more than pandemic, our problem is the hunger, the living the place to live, or a good water or climate. So, for example, when the pandemic start in India, in starting, people try to cope because they were sitting in their houses, comfortable houses, and poets also. 90% poets are sitting in comfortable houses, but they do not know that 40% workers who had a good job before pandemic, but they don't
That's
live in houses. They don't live houses because they have to save money to for their family, for in a village and all. So they live in a rented houses in a big cities. When pandemic start, the bills companies all closed, and they were without any job, and they were without any home.
pardon.
Some for some time, few people or even government also feed them, but that was not sufficient. They were not beggars because they were all hard workers. They were skilled laborers, and they even I have seen the people when I feel very bad about that. The skilled laborers, they were working free because like they were doing sculptures of a temple this idols. They were actually artists, but they wanted to work free so that they can get food. But for that also they were thrown out. Nobody was allowed inside. And then thousand and thousand people were on the road. That time spirituality won't work. That time faith will not work. That time
Exactly.
only the support will work, and your spirituality should be in a different kind. But what happened? 20% people like us who were sitting comfortable, locked inside, saving, trying to saving from the pandemic, were afraid sitting inside. And 30%, 40% were on the road walking 500,000 miles back to their land where they thought there will be something, at least there will be home, shelter, but there were no food. So here we understand that uh, the spirituality is also change its way or its style time to time. I saw that time many people start writing poetry on their going back to home, which I did not. Maybe I could not uh, do that because I feel that it. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of myself because writing poetry is not giving them food or shelter. At that time, they need me as a physical person, and I cannot go out and help. That is my weakness, not their weakness. They survived in COVID, hardly got COVID. And the people who are inside the house, they could get this pandemic very easily. So, in that, your second question itself is saying that writing poetry itself is not giving back to humanity. Some people are going back, or some people died, and you are writing poetry on them. The poetry could be beautiful, or it could be a part of a history. But you're not giving anything back to humanity, as you said that are poets giving enough to humanity as they did inherit from their ancestors? Because that is again question that see, okay, the poetry festivals we run, but that itself is not sufficient. Yeah, I feel myself that I have also run Kritya Poetry Festival at that time, and I feel myself that I was covered because I was not able to go out, so I was doing poetry festival. But at the same time, I was not doing for the people who were on the road for shelter. So what we are giving to humanity, that is also question.
May I? Yeah,
Huh?
yeah.
Yeah,
You are exactly in the same corresponding point with what I'm trying to say or to manifest. Uh, there are layers in everything, and there are priorities in everything. First of all, we have to be safe and sound. Organically, we have to be healthy in order to create. That's full stop. Another thing is, if humanity is ill, we have to feel that illness. And I hope by next year, this COVID issue will teach us a strong lesson that we have to support each other as human being in order to survive. Without altruism, without support of each other in every field, in every sense, we can hardly survive. And COVID taught us a lot. If there will not be vaccine sooner, many people will die. In my area, I see, which is very small country. Kosovo has hardly 2 millions. Uh, every day I write condolence letters more than I write poetry. Every day I express my condolences to 10 to 15 people a day. I mean, it's over too much, and this have to give us a lesson in the future, that we have to support each other. This is the first priority, to be organically healthy. And then, if we win this battle, then as a poet, we have to create beautiful things, so these people may have hope and may have ideas how to go on in the future. This is my concept.
Yeah, that is also I understand. Because when you talk about Bhakti Kal, because I belong to two language culture. One is Sanskrit, and Sanskrit, you know that if my subject is from Vedic and Upanishad and a philosophy. Philosophy was another thing, and in Hindi, and we have the Bhakti Kal, the devotional poetry. But in India, devotional poetry is in any all languages. We have 28 official languages, and we have many languages, but we have Bhakti poetry in every languages. And sometime I feel that Bhakti poetry was actually the revolting poetry. It was against the social these problems, like Kabir. Kabir is talking about always the spirituality. Same time he was balancing between the, he was standing against the social, what you say that misfortunate people who create, like in India, if you understand that caste, creed, language, color, and all these things. So Kabir was also from this Bhaktikal, but he was very balanced. And
Yeah,
so that kind of poetry I understand. Or even Rabindranath Tagore, his poetry also had a bhakti kind of. At the same time, he was very, very universal ideas and philosophy. So the philosophy, bhakti, and all mixing together is not easy work. But media has made poetry very easy. We are coming with a poetry, aesthetics in poetry, which is your field also, because we want to talk about what is poetry we are forgetting. Writing 5 lines, which I feel immediately and paste in a Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, and I feel that I'm a poet. So that poetry itself should have a culture. It should have a dignity. It should have a it is a learning. It is a meditation, which
exactly.
is we are missing. So your next idea was that does poetry still serve as a bridge to nations, or um, uh, uh, or whether the world will become better in humanity with the poetry. What do you say? Because you are a poetry festival director, you take part in many poetry festivals. So
Yeah.
I want to know that what do you think? Do you really think that poetry is filling the bridges? Do you feel that?
Uh, it's this is very difficult topic, you know. Uh, a beautiful poem that I write may resonate with you. So, if you go back in your country, you say that I met a guy who is very interesting, very good poet, and this has to go back to media, not in social media, but to media and to decision makers, so our two nations may become closer. This is a main idea why I organize the International Poetry Festival, to invite people and to see what we have, how do we live, how do we cohabit with other nations and ethnicities, and how the beautiful word, how the poetry resonates to all of them. This is very difficult endeavor, uh, and I think the politicians, the decision makers, have to read more
Yeah,
poetry
that you are, you are taking my words. The
because you read
politicians will
something,
not give place to poets. They will give some some other voices. So the
you
politicians
know.
are making nations. Yeah.
Van Rompuy, the president of European Council, was a haiku poet,
Uh-huh.
but he was ridiculed by the bureaucrats because he was so using his emotional intelligence and his artistic expression. We don't have such case today because the politicians who are deciding about us, about art, they make policies about
Yeah.
how particular
Yeah.
branch of culture will develop. They don't read poetry and they don't know my needs, and my need is to write beautiful thing to offer to the people, and so they can spread the beautiful word, and this will be a kind of radioactive influence to the global level, of course.
Yeah, that is what, that's what I wanted to say, and you could understand very well, because I know that I was in Serbia, and Serbia was also suffering a lot due to some political decision and all. So the thing is that though we know that we organize poetry festivals, we know that because in Kritya, it is not attached to political ideology, and it is not getting money from any businessman, because I know very well that the moment I get their support, I have to support their foolish ideas. But what happens that they don't support means I have I cannot open my wings. I cannot do what I, because I have limitation of money, I have limitation of resources, so I cannot do what I wanted to do or I could do in this field. Moreover, you see that when these poetry festival, if you organize, because it happened with me also, I got two times from Argentina call, and they invite me through embassy, and that but then academy comes, and then academy wanted to send someone else because that is their in political agenda, not me. So what
Mm.
happened? That who is going to another country, what they are doing, what is their what is their idea. I have seen these things in very big rich countries also, that people who have money are actually you may know the Netherlands Walkman, and he said that that people wanted to come to festival by giving money from some rich countries. So this is and that spoils the festival. That is why he refuses. And once you refuse, means you are in a blacklist. The same happened to Kritya also. We never invite people, poets who come from their own tickets, because we want to arrange their tickets so that we can select the best poets. So
Exactly.
the problem is this. Uh, the nation should have, but unfortunately, politicians or politics has grabbed poetry also, art also. They are taking advantage by these art form. So this is a difficult time. Um, so then, what should we do in that? What do you suggest?
Uh, I think living like a isolated wolf uh, doesn't give you enough freedom. In fact, it gives you a lot of freedom, But if you play the tune of the politicians, then your wings may be broken. So I suggest that here we have to find the balance. We have to
100%.
impose we have to impose that not the highest form of our poetic expression shall be offered to the politicians because they don't have our mindset. We have to offer something lower so they can be attracted to that. Then we jump to the level we want or we aim to be on the top. Of course, everyone wants to be on the top in terms of their creation and the expression of their creativity.
But this is one thing is very good in this time, that though the social media is diluting the standard of poetry or literature, same time it is giving us freedom, that I can, like my audience can see you, meet you, or many people can be meet if we are honest in or we are honestly inviting people due to their capacity, then there will be many people who can get benefit and they can learn, the young generation learn. So that freedom has given by
Social.
this is what you said as a media, and that is how we have started this that talk, because I said that is too much now. You come and read poetry and go, because sometimes people listen, sometimes, but we should discuss, we should communicate, we should talk to young generation also. This is our duty. So this is was actually new. Next to your fourth, we are already reached to your fourth idea, that the poetry says about technology and technological advantage. So this was our new next point to talk. So you are
Yeah,
also agreeing with it, huh? Are you doing some festivals, like online festivals?
I did this year because of the COVID.
Mhm.
Uh, we didn't have a live streaming like we are doing now. We are live now, but I thought upon that many hours how to make it more beautiful. I communicated with individual poets every single day. It lasted for 1 month. Uh, they I asked them to send me the recordings of their reading to greet the festival, the sixth edition. I mean, because it was the sixth edition, and to mention because for the place and the International Poetry Festival in Kosovo as a argument that this reading was exclusively dedicated to this festival in distance, and this was video archived. Uh, what is the importance of having the video archive? Because in live streaming, people, few people can see it. If you have a video archive and you come back again and you see where did you make a mistake, and you have always a feedback. Oh, I was completely lost in that part. Oh, or this line was not so beautiful. Uh, and this we collect in our archive, and everybody can see it. We can deliver it. Who wants to listen? They come back and read again and see which poet what contribution gave to this festival. So uh, this is bringing me to the last point. What technology made possible to us is this communication with you, or the festival to organize, and having the video archives, and many other things like social media. I'm going back to what you have just said, that many people are taking advantage of social media, but social media um, helped us to get to know each other because of the distance. And I hope next time we will have a direct encounter, because we will have this COVID vaccine and people can interact. Uh, I'm hardly waiting to see will we change in that regard as a humans. Will this give us a lesson to to have this global fraternity, this sense of elevated altruism, so we can support each other, share our food, share our thoughts, communicate, etc., etc. Uh, Poetry as a creative expression is pretty endangered in this age because despite the te- technical and technological advancement are helping us, for instance, from writing on the paper to typing, and now you have for instance this remarkable tool like a tablet graphic. You write and it converts you to it to a text, which shortens our times of creation, which is very beautiful thing and helpful tool for us. And I think in this age, uh, we have, as a poet, we have to use technology, not to be enemy of it, of technology. We have to use properly because they said, uh, I don't, people don't read books, they read internet. Yes, internet is a vast ocean. It all depends on what triggers your attention. Many people are searching for porns, many people are searching for economy. I'm searching the internet archives where I can find interesting books, for instance. It all depends on what how are you created and formed in your youth, in your middle age, and in your senility. Because, as I said, a vast ocean gives you more, so you can choose, and we are those who choose.
Yeah, you are right in that. One thing I wanted to say that mm, when you are saying that this pandemic has changed the world, yes, we were also, when it started, we were also thinking that pandemic has changed the world. But you know that still,
I hope for good.
uh,
I hope it will change us for good.
but you know that it might have changed some people who are down to earth. But you know, in pandemic time, rich companies are becoming richer, poor
Richard.
are becoming poorer. Many uh, young people lost job, and technology, which was giving lot of money to young generation, are snatching their jobs. Okay, so they are becoming more greedy. So that there are a kind of group is coming up, which is more dangerous than politicians, or maybe they are the part of politician, because the politics of every country has the same history. So they are doing same thing. So when if I always feel that, I tell you that one story, that when I have gone to Germany and I have gone to concentration camp, and when I read about the cruelty, I always think that in that concentration camp, Hitler was not present. The people who present were his officers, or the people who were working for him. So the who were cruel, the officers who were present there, not their leader. So why couldn't they show little bit humanity? Why they become so cruel? Didn't they have? It means that whole generation, whole set of people become cruel, and that happened in pandemic also, because when the, you know that most of the countries government is taking advantage of pandemic, that's what we complain we get. Then most richer people are getting advantage of this pandemic. I talk about the laborers who walk on the road, they were actually skilled laborers, they were earning a quite good money, but they were thrown out because it was very easy, because it is a pandemic time, and they didn't pay for them. So what happened? Maybe there are 10 people came to support them, doesn't matter, but then what happened, that a quite good group, like a politicians plus business plus economy, was becoming more powerful. So why didn't they change? What happened to them? The people are more suffering, and then they start not fearing because they said, let us die. What happens? So the world is still imbalanced. There are many countries in middle Central America. I know them. That these people like this, I think this Alberto. So when you read their poetry, you find out that how their country was suffering, and even the mafias are still troubling common people. So world will change, we hope, but how much it change is again question. Now we go come back to our uh, previous question, spirituality. What do you call spirituality in your language?
Spirituality is something very, very intimate. It is not a religious a religious pattern, although it emerges from the religion. Religion is organized, dogma or something like that. But as for me, you call it either you call it spirituality or quantum physics. It tells me that we as humans are all connected via our protons. We all are composed by protons in our molecules. So we are interconnected. Call it a distant learning, calling distant influence, calling whatever you call it. Either you call it mysticism or quantum physics, is all the same thing. Therefore, for me, uh, we are not here to give names to things. We are here to utilize these things and these tools for the betterment of humanity. And I think with the beautiful poetry, uh, we have to speak uh, from now on as poets with terms and concepts of quantum physics if we want to to give people in the future what we thought with spirituality in our days.
It is very interesting that we are speaking in same line, though we are speaking to first time today. Before we never spoke. We know each
I don't
other, but
know.
we never spoke. We never spoke.
Yeah,
My book, which has come, the poetry therapy from distance, past to present, future. In that, I have started with this quantum physics only. That I talk about that how the poetry and science, the philosophy and science were the two faces of one coin, and how the
exactly.
quantum physics also say the same thing, that what you say, the atoms and all that, how these people are connected to each other, and that's what poetry tells us. So we are talking about the same line, that spirituality is not related to any religion. Spirituality is only for the
Exactly.
humanity. Yeah, and this
Exactly.
could be,
It's
this could be. There is very interesting story in a folk, that one person said that I am one the very devotee of Vishnu, God, said that I am his most best devotee, and then he asked God that. Am I your best devotee? He said, no, my devotee is that farmer. Then he said that how can this farmer be your devotee? Because he saw that farmer gets up early morning, say one word, one prayer, a small one line prayer, then go to his work, fielding and all this, farming and all, come back, eat, sleep, and night again, namaskar to God and sleep. Then he said that, he asked God that, how can you say that he is your bhakta? Then God says that he is doing his work.
yeah,
He's doing his work. He's not leaving his work. He's doing his work for the humanity, and that is how he is my best devotee.
exactly.
Actually, yeah, these
Exactly.
stories we get from the life, from the land. I want to listen your poetry now. We are talking for a long time because so I want to listen your beautiful poetry. You read in your language plus English, please.
I will read in English because in my language nobody can understand.
No, no problem. You can read, at least we can enjoy the sound. Shefu, you have to change your, Shehu, you have to change your, you became, you tilted. God, something happened. I think he will join in a few minutes because uh, 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 some problem is there, maybe a connection problem because he is not there. By then, I can read one of his poem because by the time he comes, uh, I think he has to join again. So by that time, I will read his poetry because I invited him for a reason because he is a Sufi poet in a modern time, and then he is very dedicated to poetry and aesthetics, and he's still working. But we come to know that his aesthetics and his spirituality is not a false one. He is it is for humanity. That's what we want. So I hope he will join us soon. Uh, but I read his poem one by the uh, as it was in the beginning. This is his one poem which he sent me. They gave up all definitions, layered fossils beneath the argue. Who is older, hen or egg? Massive droplets of rain, the soil as dry as talcum, release the petrichor we largely enjoyed and one we miss massively today and more in search of poetic and truth. The road we pass in vain, if it goes out of selves, then nothing have achieved. The world was not ready yet to observe a living human. Even up between the heavy clouds, breath is focused on constellation of the heart, some thousand nerves from the brain of the heart, which the human name is intuition. So he's still not there. I do not know where he is. Maybe because it was very difficult for him to join in his starting because maybe he is uh, still on. Uh, uh, it is difficult now because he is not seen. So do we wait for some time or I do not know that I don't get his uh, 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 communication also. I don't get his message and he should. Oh, yes, he's coming, very good, welcome back.
I lost the connection. I'm so
Ah,
sorry. I lost the connection.
no problem.
I'm back.
By then I read your poem, one poem. Now you read, please. I am waiting for your poem. I was thinking
I
that what to do. Please read your
no,
poem.
no. I was completely cut off. So I will read one of poems I've sent you, and I hope in India many people speak English, so there will not be a problem. Uh,
But I suggest
Please,
that you read one poem in your language also. That the language is have its beauty. So we want to listen also. So please, in English as well as in your language.
okay. This poem is titled "Remnants of Another Eon," and I will read it first in Albanian so to give a flavor of the language because I think many people there did not hear, they never hear any Albanian words, so it's a good opportunity so
Yeah,
I can
that.
read in Albanian. Remnants remnants of another eon. Mbetjet e një epoke tjetër. Ngjyran bruz e ruaj që të shkruaj vetëm për dashuri, dhe letër e përgjakur të trashëgimisë unë e ruaj në një kuti prej drurit, ku është e stolisur me gjethe të bakrit në kapakun e tij dhe me një spërkatje të llakut të rëndë, e spërkatur me aromë moshuesi dhe në epitafin tim nga grafeni shkruan: letrat e shëndritshme janë të shkruar me llaser të gjelbërt dhe thotë: këtu noton shpirti i njeriu të dritës, një mbetje nga një epokë e hershme. Now I'm going back to English version. The remnants of another eon. Turquoise ink I saved to write only about love, and a blood letter of mortgage keeping in a box made of oak tree wood. Copper leaves for its leads and a splash of heavy lacquer above all. Moshes sprinkled on my epitaph from gruff and light letters inscribed with a green laser states: herein floats the soul of a light man, a remnant of another eon. So this is poetry read in both languages, Albanian and English.
Mhm.
Shall I
Do you have
continue?
some, yeah, music? Yes, please continue. Your musical poetry also you please read, because we want to listen that. I like the European or the poetry from that area, the some kind of music. That also beautiful. Sufism.
I don't have now. Now I don't have
So I will
music,
invite
but
again for that. Uh,
I will rather read this poetry, which I, as a poet, give a great importance to the word, because nowadays everything is becoming algorithm. I still stick to the word, and this is very important. It resonates to the biblical times as God created from the beginning, as they said it was a logos, a word, and God says be, and it becomes. So this
okay.
is very resonating to the biblical time in terms of importance of the word, but the word here is still important for us because every word has its numeric counterpart. As it was in the beginning, they gave up all definitions, layered fossils beneath the argue who's older, hen or the egg. Massive droplets of rain, the soil as dry as talcum, release the petrichor we largely enjoyed, the one we miss massively today, and more in search of poetics and truth. The road we passed in vain, if it goes out of sleeves, then nothing have we ever achieved. The world was not ready yet to absorb a living human, even up between the heavy clouds. The breath is focused in the constellation of the heart. Some thousand nerves from the brain of the heart, which the human name it intuition. We laugh upon every definition, and still none can order a meal with algorithm, but solely by word, as it was in the beginning.
You know that in your absent, I read this poem.
You did this one. So
Because
I
I like very much that there is a question that whether the egg or hen, that the questions are many. It's a beautiful poem.
thank you.
Will you like to read some more poems?
Yeah, of course. It's
Please,
pleasure.
please.
This is very like a nostalgic one that's bringing me back to my past when my father was alive. This dry day age of mine. They were classifying stones to decorate the pavement, a mosaic of life, a mosaic for life and beyond. Friends called me to go swimming in the river far from home. Father was strict. I dare not to ask him a permission, unless I lied to him as I was going to shop a chain for my puppy, a Yorkshire Terrier he brought from Vojvodina some days ago. I didn't know how to put those days in the memory ampules, to preserve them in a velvet box, all nacre and silver decorated, and satin flashing red inside, smelling the oak moss and ambergris and tonka perfume of my mom. In this dry day age of mine, smog and skunk and rotten fruit suffocate and drown us down to the ravine, all bloods and bones of the past ages.
So, is it over?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's over.
so it's nice to hear you, and though we meet first time, but many places we were talking the same issues, same ideas. That yes, the poetry should be for humanity, for the spirituality is important, but spirituality is what which is towards the humanity, towards the nature, towards the world. We cannot be cannot write just for ourselves to our promote ourselves or live in our own world. So we still hope for a best in this difficult world. And I'm sorry this time, this was the actually our almost 30th issue, and you face so much difficulty in entering in it. So I'm very sorry for that. This is a technical hinge, but I feel that it will be next time we meet somewhere or meet somewhere with a good
You
talk.
come
Thank
here.
you.
You come here next year. You come
I
to
hope because
Kosovo. Meet your husband.
yeah, I will try. I will try, but if I will survive, that is another thing.
We will survive. Don't lose hopes. I'm extreme.
And we are old. We are old. You people are young. We are old. Both are old. So
I'm
it's okay.
I'm extreme optimist. I'm extreme optimist, and I always hope for the better. I always see the light in the darkest parts of the universe. So I think we will survive. I hope this COVID will give us a strong lesson, so we can teach each other, learn from each other, cohabit in this small tiny planet called Earth.
Yeah, that is. I also wish we will get this hope in the future, and I am thankful to you for your today your ideas and your poetry. Thanks a lot. We will meet
It
sometime.
was my great
So
pleasure. Thank you very much indeed. It was my great pleasure. I greet you all there. Take care. Be safe and sound. We need you. We need your work. Poets need each other as the others need the poets. Thank you very much.
thank you. Bye. Take care.
Bye bye.